Hello there, everybody. Thank you for coming to watch us on replay today for our Love Biz workshop and development session. Today we have Clare Downham, and we have got a great session for you entitled Purpose, Productivity and Presence. And Clare has been a member for quite a while with us, and I'm going to let her introduce herself, and we can learn a bit more about her, about Clare, and then we're going to have a session with Clare, and she's going to be sharing and talking, and then we're going to end our recording before we start our Q&A. So, ladies, strap in, get your seat belts all booted. We're going on a journey. So over to you, Clare. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Sue. You probably don't need to belt in as much as maybe take a breath and feel your feet on the floor and just be here in this moment. If you can be fully listening, that'd be great. If not, don't worry about it too much. But yeah, it's gonna be settling this rather than revving us up. So I've got a little presentation that I'm going to share with you as we go on our little journey today. Let's get that up and running first and make sure all that technological stuff is working. I do believe you can all see it, which is good. So today's session is Purpose, Productivity and Presence, Finding Real Flow in Business and Life. And as some of you will have noticed if you were around yesterday when I was on a networking meeting, that I've had a bit of a change of direction over the summer. I often find the summer for me is a time of reflection. I think that is the teacher in me. I'm still a teacher at heart, as you are seeing today. It's definitely a big part of me. And August has always been a time of reflection. And I haven't been listening to my own inner knowing. As you know, I often talk about that old inner knowing. I haven't been listening to it until finally it shouted louder than my inner critic. And I am now settling into this lovely space of helping you to create a well-run, good-feeling business. And I think the three words that we're going to look at today, purpose, productivity, and presence, are absolutely key to that, especially for us women. Perhaps I want to let you know that you're in the right place. Maybe you're spinning plates, running on empty and still feeling behind. Maybe you feel like you're doing everything. I think a lot of women do. I think we've all taken on this role of a business owner, probably most of us previously as employee, and we're still doing all the other stuff. If you look at the woman in the picture, you can see the businesswoman post-it notes like tucked on her shoulder somewhere, and all the other stuff is like swirling around her. We have a never-ending list of things to do, and we think we've got to do them all. And so this topic today is really, really important for us in terms of creating a life, I think, that is calmer, that doesn't have to feel like hustle. Women have a very different energy to men in terms of productivity, and I think it's important that we tune into that. So our common experience may be chasing purpose, working harder, using more tools and still feeling behind. So a little bit of my story around this is that when I first started my business, productivity was front and center of my mind all the time. I really did buy into that hustle of business. And I tried every tool and technique in the book to try and make myself more productive. So I listened and read, mostly listened to books like The 5-Second Rule and all the books about habits. I mean, why are there about 6 books that basically mean small habits, but they've all got different titles like Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits. But I looked at a lot at habits. I thought that was the key, right? If I get myself into habits, I can get more done. I tried a lot of time management tools like Asana and Trello and Google Tasks and all sorts. I'm sure there's a longer list than I can mention today of all those different kind of things. And none of them really worked. I used to spend time moving my list about a lot. Anybody can anybody relate to that? Maybe you can. I'd have it on Trello, and then I can't get things done from Trello or Asana, so I'm going to put it all back on paper again. And now I'm going to use the Eisenhower matrix, the important, urgent. Make sure I'm going to put it all on there, and I move it onto there, and then I'm still not getting the things done. I need to move it back. So I want you to know that today is not about that. This session is not about giving you another flipping tool or technique to manage. This is about seeing something new. Often the understanding that I share with people, known as the 3 principles, is called subtractive rather than additive. A lot of what we try to do to make ourselves be more productive and find our purpose and do all those things are additive things. They make our minds more busy. So today we're kind of looking in the opposite direction to that. What can we let go of? What we'll be subtracting today is more the point. So there are some fundamental truths about being human, and we're going to touch on those today. As I mentioned, the 3 principles is the understanding that I teach from, coach from, mentor from, and there is one really fundamental principle of that, and that is that our feelings are always created from thought in the moment and never from anything outside of us, not from our circumstances. Another way of saying that is we're always feeling thought in the moment. We are never feeling our circumstances. But my goodness, it doesn't look like that, does it? I was chatting to Sue before you all came into the room, and I was sharing the experience I had last week where my partner has an ex, they have a child together, we have some relationship stuff to navigate, and she sent this really awful message, and I lost my proverbial. I really did. Ended up ranting, upset, all sorts of things. But underneath that ranting, I still knew that it was my thinking about the message. It wasn't the message itself that had created my experience. And that allowed me to make very different decisions about what I then did. Now, within our businesses, we have a lot to do. There is no denying that most of us have I've got my list on the chair next to me here. It's pretty long. It's a side of A4 at the moment. I keep squeezing more things in between the lines of it. And a lot of them are feeling quite urgent. They need doing this week. And it's very easy when we're feeling like that, when we've got a lot on, or it seems like there's a place to get to, that we can end up feeling quite overwhelmed by what's in front of us. However, here's the thing about overwhelm. It doesn't actually come from your workload. It comes from thought in the moment. It comes from what you're thinking about your workload. And I often say my strapline for overwhelm is believing the thought that says you have to do all of this now. And you don't. Well, you can't, can you? Because unless you have, several pairs of arms, you literally cannot do more than one thing at once. Multitasking is not a thing. It isn't actually possible. We can task flit, but we tend to be pretty inefficient when we do that. So perhaps it'd be nice to see in the chat, actually, what overwhelm feels like to you, because for me, it feels heavy in the chest, as if an elephant is sat on my chest and there's a lot of tightness there. There's a lot of heaviness, and it feels like, like I've got concrete boots on, really, that the ability to move forward from there can be really, really, really difficult. So I'd be interested to know what overwhelm feels like for you, because I think it does feel different for everybody, but it can feel yeah, so I love that somebody shared in the chat, I can't take deep breaths. Yeah, but you're breathing up here, aren't you? It feels very tight, like very shallow up in your throat. Same for me, definitely, with overwhelm. And when I used to experience overwhelm in the past, I used to think, well, I used to go down one of two paths: either complete freeze, like just do nothing, because in that moment when we feel that feeling of overwhelm, it seems like the list is doing it to us. The list is making us feel this way. So let's just get away from the list, move away from it as far as we possibly can, and not even look at it. And that I would do that. And maybe some of you can relate to that. I would literally do that. I would just ignore the list and let's go make some kombucha. I had a client once who used to make soup and stews when he felt overwhelmed, and he actually had a freezer full of soup and stews that he was probably never going to eat because his freezer was now full, but still just go make another pan of soup instead of doing what you know, what he really wanted to be doing in his business, because the feeling of overwhelm looked like it was coming from the list. The thing to know about that feeling of overwhelm, again, it is coming from our thoughts about the list. It is not coming from the list. And of course, it has quite a vicious loop, does that, because when we believe the list is creating the feeling, we then avoid the list perhaps, and then we feel more overwhelmed because then the list has just got longer or the time's got shorter, and that feeling perpetuates. But it's still our thinking about all of it. The other direction that people can go in, which is very common, I think, for us women who think we can do everything, we all think we're superwoman, don't we, is we just work too hard. So we work ridiculously long hours. We don't look after ourselves. We don't perhaps get enough sleep. We miss out perhaps on family time and things like that. And that can be the other direction that people go in when it comes to overwhelm. I mostly responded by freezing in my business. And I have been through periods as well where I've just worked ridiculously long hours. I was a head teacher, so I did have a tendency to work ridiculously long hours. So there's a really useful, what we call a somatic connection here that's really important, and that is understanding that whatever sensations you're feeling in your body, they're not a problem, they are your inner guidance. When you feel a tension in your body, we've already talked about overwhelm, you know, it's that heaviness in the chest. Perhaps there's some anxiety with it. And I had a client once who called the angry butterflies. I absolutely love that. You know, the angry butterflies in the stomach, the tight shoulders, you know, all those sensations. They're just letting us know that we're in our heads rather than being in the world, that we're believing some thinking that's not helpful, that we're just in that moment caught up in a thought storm that we believe to be true. And there's a really simple reframe here in terms of what our emotions really mean, that they are a personal guidance system rather than a problem to be solved. And this is so impactful when it comes to productivity. So I'll give you an example of this. That I make a lot of content for Insight Time, as some of you will know. And I always used to make courses that were like 5 lessons long. And then I came up with this idea for a confidence course. And when I came to write it out, I thought, oh, this is longer, actually. It's going to be 10 lessons. So I'd written the course, I'd done all my outline, and I usually have like 5 bullet points per lesson. I'd done it all. I got up in the morning. Today's task is recording the course on confidence. So I'm getting ready in the morning and I just start to feel that feeling, like the heaviness, like my head started to feel heavy, everything. And I was just like, what is going on here? And I stopped. So we're going to talk later in this session about the power of pausing. I stopped and I felt my feet on the floor and I took a breath and I saw it. I saw the thinking. It was going, oh, it's going to take a really long time to record this course. Oh, it's going to take, oh, it's long. It's too long. Why are you making it so long? You know, it was just this thing about the length of the course. In actual fact, what I needed to do was go downstairs and record the first lesson. Open the document, open Audacity, record the first lesson. But my mind was making it into, you've got to do it all now. It's going to take too long. You've got other things to do. Maybe you could do something else. It was very, very, very noisy in my head. Another example was I did my tax return on the 8th of April this year. It's the first time I've ever done it so early. Any accountants in the room, please, you know, send me a celebratory sticker or something. But I normally do it in the week between Christmas and New Year. That's normally, I've just got to get it done. And I did it because, again, I came downstairs, I had it in my mind, right, today's the day, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in April. For the first time ever, I'm going to do it in April. And I came downstairs and again, I started to notice that heaviness. Oh, tax return, it's so awful. You know, like really feeling the heaviness. And I could hear the thinking really loudly saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that. Do something else. No, why don't you make a video or do something else nice? You know, don't do the tax return. But I felt it, and I know now that when I'm feeling tense, when I'm feeling tight, that's just letting me know that my state of mind is out. It's out of kilter. I'm believing thoughts that are just not true. And again, felt my feet on the floor, took a breath, and the tax return got done. Like magic. And what a great feeling that was to do it on the 8th of April and not have it hanging over, because they do, don't they, these tasks, when you don't get them done, they're like tapping on your shoulder all the time, and this can stop you focusing on things that that you really would like to focus on. So the concluding part of this little section really is that we don't need to fear our emotions. Society is really ramping up this idea that our emotions are something to be afraid of. Really ramping it up now, because a lot of our emotions have been attributed to mental illness conditions and things like that. And so now we're much more afraid of our emotions. And Sydney Banks, who was the first person who articulated the room principles, said, if the only thing that people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. We don't need to be afraid of our experience. It's just information letting us know what our state of mind is. So, the inner critic plays a part in this often. And I think it definitely comes in terms of us having faith in our ability to do things and get things done. Very quickly, we can consider doing a thing, and very quickly the inner critic comes in and tells us all the reasons why we can't do that thing. I'm going to be really vulnerable here, actually, and share something that came up for me today around how quickly and how almost inaudibly, you don't really hear it initially, that can come in. So I'm in the process of preparing a proposal for a business to go and do some of this work, deliver into a recruitment company. And I was chatting to ChatGPT about how I might format it. And then I said, well, what kind of price would you suggest for this? And when the number came up on the screen, I burst into tears. Like literally spontaneously burst into tears. Like a visceral feeling that money was too much. Like that was the feeling, that I cannot charge that. It just felt really, really strong. And I now know, when I'm in that state, that whatever I'm thinking is absolute rubbish. It's nonsense. It's all nonsense. And so I sat and cried for 5 minutes. I just let that be. I think allowing our emotions to be there when we get stuck, and when we feel like, quite often we just feel like we've got to plow through, haven't we? I'll just keep going, and I'll plow through it. And actually allowing your feelings to be. So I sat and I just felt the feelings. And I had a proper sob, literally a proper sob. And as I began to settle down, this clarity came through. And this is what is so powerful to see, is when we allow our emotions to be there, we come into the present moment, and there's a settling down that comes with that. And then this clear thought came through, and it said, why don't you go look to see what kind of people pay for training in recruitment? So obviously that was a quick Google search. Holy moly, my price was low. Immediately then. And so I didn't need to do anything. I didn't need to not charge the price. I didn't need to not take that action to propose this price to this person. I had to wait for clarity, wait for settling down. So that's another example of how, when we allow ourselves to settle, what comes after that is often much clearer. Because once I saw the price that recruitment people are paying for training, I went, oh my God, this guy is not going to even flinch at this price, because it's probably not going to be anywhere near what he's already paid out in training that he's finding is unsuccessful because his team are too busy-minded. So often the inner critic also comes in and tells us we're not doing enough. We're never doing enough. The inner critic loves that story, never ever doing enough. And so that's when we can get caught up in what I said before about all those tools and trying to manage our time better. And we're not really managing our time, we're managing ourselves, but using Asana. So Asana is a great example for me. I mentioned it before. I tried Asana. No, did not work for me. I had a VA for a while. She tried to get me on Asana. No, can't do it. Not working. Not getting anything done when I put it on Asana. Now I use Asana every day to manage my time, because it's clarity first, then tools. If you're not calm and clear and settled, You can try all the tools in the book and they will not work. You'll go round and round in circles. The tools that we can use once we are clear-minded are just, endless. We can make our business work really well. Tools will amplify clarity, but they won't create it. And I think that's what we're told. We might work with a VA or might work with somebody who's a productivity coach or something like that, and they'll say, well, all you need to do is put everything on Asana or put it on Google Tasks or have it all aligned with your calendar or time block, or there are endless strategies to try and manage ourselves. Really, we're not managing time, we're managing ourselves. Time blocking was another one that I was told about. 12-week year planning systems, and God, I've tried them all. None of them work while your mind is busy, while your mind is still listening to that critical voice or listening to the voice inside you. They just won't work. So, the power of presence. As I've already mentioned with what I've been talking about in terms of overwhelm is future thinking taking form in your body. It's saying what you think you should get done, what you should have done yesterday. Oh God, this is still on my list because I should have done it yesterday, and now I've not got to do it today, and I've got to squeeze it all with all the things that I was going to do today anyway. And we can get so quickly very, very stirred up, but we cannot take action in the past or the future. We can only take action in the now. And the more we can get ourselves grounded into the present moment, the more we are likely to take the action that we want to take. And you'll know how it feels when you're caught up in the past. When you're caught up in the past, you'll feel regret, you'll feel down, you'll have a low mood. If you're caught up in the future, you tend to feel more anxious and worried. And again, your body will be guiding you to let you know that your thinking is off, that it's out of kilter, that you're caught up in something that isn't the present moment. Presence really is the gateway to natural productivity. Because if you are really in the here and now with nothing else on your mind, your ability to get stuff done quickly and smoothly and calmly is amplified. Because you're not focusing on all the little monkeys that are on your shoulder. You're just focusing on now. You're focusing on what's right in front of you and what you can get done now. When I go to do a task now, it takes a lot less time because I'm not flitting about between other things. I'm just really in the present moment. Now, being present to our emotions, like I mentioned before, is a really powerful way to get ourselves back into presence and back into the present moment. So for me, what that looks like is, like I mentioned with the, making the confidence course or doing my tax return, it involves stopping, first of all. So when you notice that you're feeling tense in your body, you do have to notice what's going on in your body. I know for many of us that is quite tricky because I was brought up in the 70s and 80s when you didn't talk about your feelings, especially not in Yorkshire, for God's sake. So you just kept them all to yourself. You were scolded, really, if you expressed your feelings. But the ability this isn't about expressing them, but it is about feeling the sense of them in the body. When you feel your feelings in your body, you're immediately in the present moment because that's real. That's now. If I've got angry butterflies, I can feel the sensation of those right now in my stomach. And that's me in the present moment, feeling what's there. And off the back of that, like I said in the example with the money thing today, the clarity that comes, the really clear next step just comes from being in that present moment. And it might not always be the thing that you thought you were going to do. It might be just some intuitive nudge. And some of those intuitive nudges, those inner knowings, can sound a little bit off. But the one for me today, which said, go to the recruitment site, go to the internet and find out what recruiters are paying for training, was so clearly useful. It was so helpful because it gave me a lot of clarity straight away, and it allowed some ease around charging that amount of money for something. So we can't take action in the past or the future. So another big part of running our businesses, of course, is decision making. We all have to make decisions all day, every day, both in our businesses, in our lives, don't we? I used to think that was my job, decision making, that it was a thinking thing, that I needed to think long and hard about everything, do my pros and cons, go back and forth. And I still get caught up there in that kind of overthinking sometimes, but a lot less than I used to. Now I see decision making is easier when I'm calm. That's the first thing. It's much more aligned. It's much easier. It's just totally and utterly so much easier. And so when we have a clearer mind, we can make decisions that are easier when we know what our feelings are pointed to our state of mind and not our situation. So let me just talk through the idea of that is if you think, it's almost like you come to a join in the road, really, a fork in the road. So when we feel a feeling, if we think that feeling is coming from out there, i.e. another person, a circumstance, situation we're in, we will act out there to try and correct that, to try and feel better. And that's what we're always trying to do as human beings, trying to feel better. If at that junction we evaluate our feeling in a different way and we realise that's about our state of mind, we're less likely to do things. And in that way, we can navigate life with a lot more ease. So that really comes into play in terms of this thing called purpose. There's been a lot written about it and a lot said about purpose. And it can be paralyzing when we think that we need to know that way, way, way in advance. We've got to decide what's my purpose so that I can go through life and know that I'm doing all the right things. That's fundamentally what we're trying to do, aren't we? We just want to know we're doing the right thing. And doing the right thing, of course, is a belief that many of us have, that we have to do, because we were all brought up to do the right thing, weren't we? Like good girls that we are. And that can end up, as I say, it can end up being really paralyzing, because you're waiting to find the thing that you're supposed to do. And in the meantime, you're not really taking any action, you're not really moving forward. But what I want to say today is that purpose isn't a fixed destination. It's something that emerges through action and it evolves over time. So your purpose right now, I hope, is to sit and listen to me. My purpose right now is to do this presentation. I've got a number of other things I might do this afternoon that will be my purpose in that moment. So again, we're back to presence. We're back to what is there now. The more I think we can put down the future, like really just put it down, the better life we lead. And that's what I've seen in this emerging of creating a well-run, good-feeling business, is that as I started to see that there was this shift needed, and I started to move towards it, so I started to take a little bit of action. Maybe I think I chatted to ChatGPT about it, but then I just became very open to what might occur. And that phrase, the well-run, good-feeling business, actually came as I was on a walk. I was walking around York Racecourse. Some of you may know the Knowsmire. I was walking around there and I was listening to a book, and a guy called Jerry Hicks. Some of you may have heard of Abraham Hicks. They write about the law of attraction. And he just said this phrase in the context. He was saying, talking about a stressed out business owner or something, and he said something like, all anybody wants is a well-run, good-feeling business. And I just went, oh my God, that's exactly what I want to help people create. It just hit me. And then I've noticed over time, as I've just kept taking the next step, I put a video out last week, I think. I'm just, just starting to just put things out gently, that it's all kind of falling into place, and opportunities are coming and conversations are happening just by taking the next step. The purpose is evolving all the time, because purpose is in the present moment. It isn't something that we're going to create some far-flung future place. And as part of that, we're going to use that navigation system of the feeling. Like, I find myself less and less tolerant of being in a horrible feeling. I get caught sometimes, like I was saying, chatting to Sue before, about losing my mind completely over random messages from my fiance's ex. I do lose my mind sometimes, but I find myself less tolerant of that feeling like that. I don't want to feel like that. And I know that I'm not working at my best when I do feel like that. And we can use those. I feel like it's a bit like a pinball machine, the little arms at the side. And your emotions are just there to keep nudging you back into center, back into alignment. I actually love that word, alignment. I think it's really helpful. And the more time we spend in a good feeling, the easier decisions you'll make, and your purpose will emerge over time. It's not something you get to nail down at the beginning. Put that whole idea down. Just follow those nudges and start moving forward. So this is kind of a little process that I'm not a big fan of tools and techniques, but I do think there is something powerful about slowing the chuff down and giving yourself a chance during the day to breathe and stop and see where you're at emotionally. We get so busy that we're kind of bouncing from one thing to the next all the time. And as a result of that, we're not really tuning into that guidance that's there for us all the time. So this is exactly the process that I went through when I had that emotional reaction to seeing a big number on on the computer screen of a price that I might charge for something. It's notice the feeling. Just allow it. There's nothing to fix, nothing to do about it. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to meditate it away or tap it away or drink it away. I know that's an option sometimes. And what you'll notice by just being, and when I say be with a feeling, for me, that feels like almost a childlike thing. You know how a child would say, I've got angry butterflies in my tummy, or my chest feels all itchy or tight, or, they would use that very, very simple, maybe they'd use words like prickly or spiky or itchy. They would use those very physical, childlike words. Those are the kind of words. Don't use words like anxiety, because that will set you off in a path that's not helpful. As you do that, you come very into the present, and the clarity comes from there, and you can then act from a fresh space. Now, this pausing is something that I'm doing more and more during the day now, like deliberately actually stopping. And I'm calling it the power pause. So it is, it's almost like an intention setting thing. So when you go from, because like that woman with all the post-it notes on her face, we're all going from one thing to the next, and we're doing it all too fast. We're going far too fast in our lives. So this is about setting an intention for the next piece of your day. So it might be just going to go do the washing up, or you're going to go from a work activity to a child-based activity. So you might still have some of those little people in the background at the moment. Some of you've had a summer full of it, but it's about stopping for long enough to move from one thing to the next with some kind of intention of feeling good as you go into that. Now, I'm listening to a lot of stuff about the law of attraction at the moment, and it all connects up with what I'm sharing here. The more time you spend in a good feeling, the more things that are good feeling come into your life. It just works that way to me, not least because we make better decisions when we're in a good feeling place. So it's about stopping, pausing, like just pausing. It's really funny because we think I've got to go faster to get everything done, but the power of pausing and just taking a breath before you go into the next thing, you will find that you are much more productive going into the next thing when you've grounded yourself into the present moment. So you just pause, you settle, just notice your breath, your body, anything that helps you to just really be in this present moment. Like, like noticing your breath, your body, whatever it is, just noticing, there's a table here, I'm sat on a chair, feel your feet on the floor, ground yourself back into the present moment. And then gently bring your mind to what's next, just noticing how that feels. And then when you step forward, you do that from a quieter place, so you can take that next action with clarity. Now, one of the business coaches who I follow a lot, George Cow, he calls it his energy reboot. Similar kind of thing. It's taking time to pause and set yourself up for the next thing you're going to do. And believe you me, it creates a different level of productivity, which is what we all want, really. We all want a smooth day where we get as much as we can get done without being hard on ourselves for not getting things done. Please put that one down. And enjoy the day. Bring joy in. Joy can be there in every single task that you do. Even your tax return, it turns out. Who knew that was a thing? That you could enjoy doing your tax return. So here's a little summary of what I've shared today. Flow comes from presence, not planning. I used to think I had to plan every moment, schedule every hour, be very tight around my timings and what I did. But I really don't believe that to be true now. I think a clear mind will get things done in a timely fashion. So, number one, overwhelm is thought, not workload. It's your thinking about your tasks, not the tasks themselves. None of your feelings come from the outside world. That is a much, what's the word I'm trying to say? It's just believed to be true. You watch the news, you look at Facebook, you go everywhere. Everybody's saying, out there is making you feel bad. A really amusing thing happened to me on Insight Timer. I have a course about overwhelm on Insight Timer. And when Mr. Trump got elected, the take-up in that course went through the roof. I'm fairly sure the two things are related, because people believe that Mr. Trump can make them feel things, which is not true. Purpose evolves through action. It's a step-by-step from this present moment. Take the next step. Don't get too ahead of yourself. You cannot sort out the future now. You can just do now. And tools support clarity. They don't replace it. You can try all the tools in the book, and those are not in the book, to try and get yourself to be productive. But until you've got a clear mind, none of them will actually work. You'll just end up stuck in the same thing. So the result: clarity, calm, presence, and a well-run, good-feeling business. Now, finally, if you'd like to explore this a little further, I have a course coming up, called it Purposeful Productivity. It's going to be 31 little audios, one each day, 4 group mentoring calls. They'll be on Thursdays at 3 p.m. from the 9th to the 30th, those 4 Thursdays. The recording is available. It's only £100, and there'll be a 25% discount for Love Biz members. So it'll only cost you £75. And you can scan that QR code, and I'll pop the link in the chat as well. And then over to questions.
Thank you, Claire. I was just scanning your QR code.
Oh, I should put that back up, shouldn't I?
Yeah, pop it back up.
Oh, I'll put the link in the chat as well. Let me put that.
And of course, this is going to be on a recording for everyone who's watching now. But yeah, I was just literally about to scan it. That's a very good price there, Claire.
It is.
It is. And I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to have you all as accountability people in the room. I'm going to do that because I think listening to Claire sometimes, like she says about the clarity, some of the words she says, it just means so much. And actually you think, well, actually that's real. But you just sometimes need to hear those words, don't you? And I think that's fabulous offer there. And I'm going to do it. So Claire, you can spank my bottom if I don't, but I'm going to do it later. Ladies in the room, we are staying on for questions, but to everybody who's watching the recording now, we'll say farewell. And Claire's details there are all on the video. So please do try and take up that offer. That's a super price. Thank you very much for watching. And we'll be ending the recording now.